Yo, what's up guys? It's your boy Annie Z with part 1 of what if Naofumi had the boosted gear. So let's get started. We start off with Naofumi going to the library where he was reading a book called The 4 Cardinal Heroes. He reads about a book that describes 4 heroes: a bow, a sword, a spear and a shield. A shield is not a weapon, it's more like armory, Naofumi says, before he hears some guy called Captain America starting to laugh and then says, you have no idea, you have no idea. After that experience, Naofumi continues reading the book where he sees the princess and remarks that she looks and acts like a bitch, and then carries on reading until he sees that the rest of the pages are blank. Then there was a flash of golden light as he blacks out. When his vision returns, he sees something on his arm and feels something on his arm. It was a shield, like the one from the book, as he sees 3 other people, one with a spear who looks like an average dickhead, another with a sword that looks like a Kirito ripoff but even more edgier, and finally a guy with a bow that looks like an elitist prick that looks down on everyone. The priest then greets the heroes, informing them that they have been summoned to save their world. The 3 idiots then start demanding for perks for being heroes, as Naofumi just scoffs at them. They sounded like entitled kids. He wouldn't be surprised if the kingdom betrayed them, not knowing that it was him that the kingdom would do that to. Naofumi, on the way to the throne room, looks up to see the beautiful city of melromarc. He then gazes even higher to see a red-haired girl who looks at him and smiles, but Naofumi knew there was some evil behind that smile. Naofumi was then taken to the king. The king then asked the heroes to introduce themselves, and the people of the royal court agreed, which the heroes do. As Naofumi was about to introduce himself, the king cuts him off. Ren and Itsuki point out that they missed Naofumi, as the king asks him to introduce himself. My name is Itowami Naofumi and I'm 20, Naofumi says, not wanting to give out that much information, as the king proceeds to explain the waves and give more information. After that, Ren tells them to look at their stats by looking at the little icon down below. Naofumi does that and sees name Naofumi Itowami, title shield hero and a Longinus user, race half human half dragon. This confused Naofumi, as he never knew he was half dragon. It might be a perk of coming to this world, Naofumi thought. Sacred gear unawakened. What's a sacred gear? Naofumi thought to himself. Magical affinity, healing and support, and also draconic magic. Oh, it must be because I'm a half dragon, Naofumi thought to himself. Stats. All stats are the same due to the legendary shield, but there was stats section that said boosted ×0, a magical boost, unidentified. Naofumi and the 3 idiots are then escorted to the room that they had to share. When arriving to the room, the hero talked about which game this is based on. The 3 idiots debating about something so stupid. Then they finally figure out that they're from different versions of Japan. Hey Naofumi, you're awfully quiet. Are you scared that you're the worst of us? Motoyasu says. No, I'm just reflecting about everything. I'm trying to think of a strategy, Naofumi answers, as Motoyasu grew bored and was kind of angry of Naofumi not being affected by his taunts. You're a boring guy, you know that, Naofumi? Motoyasu says. So I've been told, Naofumi replies, feeling tired. Alright guys, I'm gonna head to bed, Naofumi says, as the others just waved him off. It's not like he was important or anything, they thought. He was just the shield class. Someone meant to take hits for them and perish trying to save them. That's what they thought. Naofumi's eyes closes as he goes to a peaceful slumber. A few minutes before it was time to awaken, his black peaceful landscape has turned into fire, and then he hears a laugh. So you are my host. I'm DJ partner, and soon we shall meet. Now that you have the power to talk to me, now awaken, you need to talk to that king, DJ says in a disgustful tone, not liking the way the king treated his host like he was less than garbage the other day. Naofumi awakens before he and the other idiots are escorted to the throne room where the king is. When entering, they see a bunch of men and women in armor with weapons. Itsuki and Motoyasu then ask what's happening, as the king tells them that these adventures are the strongest in the kingdom that the kingdom has to offer, and they will assist the heroes in the journey. But there is a catch. The adventurers themselves will decide which one of the heroes they would like to join. When the king says that, the adventurers go pick the parties that they did in canon, aka not picking naofumi and just going to the other heroes. Naofumi doesn't argue with the king this time. After seeing the dragon, he felt way more confident in his abilities, but myne asked to join him. Naofumi reluctantly and uncaringly accepts. The king then gives the heroes the money, with Naofumi getting more because he doesn't have that many adventurers on his team. Naoto is then taken to Ironheart by myne, and she asks him to buy her armor, being all flirty. However, Naofumi says no, and that she is equipped enough, and this money was to be spent on him and his starting gear, not hers, making myne get angry as she rushes out of the shop. Naofumi's dominating dragon nature came to play, not letting a woman, especially one as greedy as myne, control him, as he could sense her greed. Before leaving, myne tells him to meet her at the fields so that they can grind some XP. Naofumi goes ahead and purchases the barbarian armor in red and black, like the one in the thumbnail. He then asks if there's any way to make the armor stronger, as Ironheart tells him there's a shop downtown that does enchantments on the armor. Naofumi asks for directions as he goes to the shop. He then uses most of his money adding enchantments to the armor, like elemental resistance, higher protection spells, etc. After that, he goes to the fighting ground where he meets up with myne. This means that myne doesn't know about the enchantments on his armor. Myne looks at the armor and deems it disgusting and something that animals would wear, and she wasn't surprised that the shield hero, an animal sympathizer, would pick an armor like that. So it's a shield, let's go and fight to get some XP, she says, as she goes around hitting balloons like in canon. Naofumi at first had trouble with balloons. Myne, seeing Naofumi improve a little bit, suggests going to the inn to limit his progress, as Naofumi says he will join her in a bit. Naofumi was getting frustrated. He could barely destroy balloons, and they were the weakest, as he felt a green aura surround him, and in a single punch, he destroyed 10 balloons, getting to level 3. Then Naofumi continued this grinding until night, where he gets to level 10. Naofumi had just used draconic magic, not the boosted gear yet. After that, he looks up to see his stats in the 2500s, which was better than the 5 he had at the beginning and the -2 that he had on his attack. Unknown to him that if he was at level 10 without his special perks, being the Red Dragon Emperor, he would have far lower stats. Naofumi's stats grew faster on more every level, thanks to being the Red Dragon Emperor in this. Naofumi goes to the inn, where he talks to Ren and Isuki for a bit before going to sleep, but he hides his remaining cash in his shield. Naofumi is then rudely awakened by the guards, who take him to the throne room. Naofumi wore his armor while sleeping, so they couldn't take it away from him because he came back exhausted after the grinding he did. The guards tell him he is under arrest and drag him to the throne room. Naofumi doesn't do anything as he's curious why he was arrested. On the way, Naofumi hears and sees the bystanders looking at him in disgust, and they mutter stuff about him raping the princess or the shield hero and other cruel words. Naofumi is getting angry as a green aura surrounds him, pushing the guards back down as they stood there in fear for a moment before he calms down, and the guards after a while continue escorting him to the courtroom. By the time this has happened, most of the bystanders have run away. I'm gonna burn this kingdom to the ground if this is what I think it is, Naofumi says, having read enough manga about being backstabbed to know what was happening. Naofumi arrived at the courtroom. What's going on? Naofumi was about to say but was cut off. Silence! You shall not utter another word. What you have done, the crime you have committed against my daughter, and therefore this kingdom, is atrocious. Malty, please tell this court what this demon in disguise has done to you, the king says in disgust and anger. Malty then proceeds to lie about Naofumi raping her, starting crocodile tears as Naofumi gets angrier and angrier as a little green outline of aura started leaking from Naofumi. You dirty rapist, to think you were summoned here with us. I'm ashamed to have known you, Itsuki says, as the air starts getting stronger and stronger around Naofumi. You scum, Ren says, as the guards start feeling a push as a red gauntlet appears, but since they were focusing on Malty, they didn't see the red gauntlet appear on Naofumi's arm. "Naofumi, you degenerate, I will kill you for raping myne. I knew you weren't a hero. You're a devil. You can't amount to anything," Motoyasu says, as he remembers all the time his parents used to tell him he was a failure and that they should focus on his brother. As the aura around Naofumi turns red and then a hole is blown in the room of the castle, Naofumi is then turned into the Red Dragon Emperor's scale mail as he was in his balance breaker form. Everyone felt fear, especially Malty, the king, and the 3 idiots. "Shooto, stand down, or else you won't just be disgraced in this kingdom, you'll be executed," the king says.
"Stupid disgraces. You fucked up by messing with my host. You have made a poor decision, and now you will pay,"
Drake says.
"I, who am about to awaken, am the heavenly dragon who have stolen the principles of domination from God. I laugh at the infinite, and I grieve at the dream. I shall become the red dragon of domination, and I shall sink you to the depths of crimson purgatory, Juggernaut Drive."
Naofumi yells with Drake's voice as he starts to turn into Juggernaut Drive, his limbs, his neck getting bigger as his armor changes to that of the shape of a humanoid dragon, the one that Issa used in the Juggernaut Drive form. Naofumi yells out in rage, destroying everything as everyone was left terrified. "So this is your true form, monster. Heroes, take down this monster so that we can send him away and force him to help us when we need him," the king yells. The 3 idiots hesitantly start fighting Naofumi, with Motoyasu charging at Naofumi. "You're gonna feel pain, rapist," Motoyasu says, plunging his spear into Naofumi, only to see Naofumi had his hand coming towards him as Naofumi smacks him away, breaking all of his ribs, forcing him to pass out as Naofumi lets out a roar, but what he is saying isn't able to be understood because it sounds like a dragon roaring. Itsuki starts firing arrows before Naofumi had enough of having his sight being blinded by flashes that never even hurt him, as he opened his mouth and a green beam is launched at him. His party sacrifices themselves to save Itsuki. The beam, however, doesn't stop there. It goes towards the noble district, killing a lot of nobles, as after seeing this, the civilians of the castle city starts running to evacuate themselves. It also destroyed a certain slave joint, but a certain slave girl, aka Raphtalia, wasn't there, as she was sent to Silkwell because her parents had sent her there before the attack of the 3-headed dog. Ren then charges at Naofumi. "Calm down, you idiot. You're destroying everything. Stop this madness. Let's speak like civilized men," Ren says, as Naofumi roars in rage, Ren unable to understand what he was saying. But what Naofumi was truly saying was, "Looks like I'm not the weakest anymore. Now look at you. You're all the weakest. I'm the strong one." Naofumi is then hit by Ren's sword, only for it to do nothing, as Ren looks up in fear as Naofumi flares up a bit of his aura, sending Ren flying into a wall, knocking him out. With the 3 idiots knocked out, Ren and Motoyasu knocked out by being sent to a wall, while Itsuki was knocked out from passing out from fear, seeing his party killed right in front of him, and that he was near death experience that he had from Naofumi's beam. Naofumi then grabs Malty. "Let go of me, I'm the princess, you devil of the shield," Malty says, as Naofumi squeezes her, slowly and painfully breaking her legs. "Stop, my legs, let me go," she says. Naofumi then claws her face, making her bleed, as Naofumi hears a certain voice, "Break her legs," and this was Nora from another anime series. "Stop, it hurts," the princess says. "I, the princess, demand you to stop and release me," she says, as Naofumi drops her to the ground, but he doesn't just drop her, he throws her to the ground, making her shoulder break as he starts to punch her, limiting his punches not to kill her. "Stop, it hurts. I admit, I was never raped. I was in leagues with my dad and the church to frame you so that we could sully your reputation," she says. Naofumi then goes to the king as he grabs him before he hears a voice in his head. "Partner, you can't hold the form for much longer. Get out of there," the voice says. Naofumi then crushes the king's legs as he rips his arms off and flies up above Castle City. Boost, 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 boost was all that was heard as his chest plate opens up. The civilians of Castle City had evacuated. The surviving ones, long giants smashed at a green beams, descended towards the sea, blowing it up as the king and the others made it out, thanks to the Pope's secret weapon, the replica, and the guards carrying him out. Naofumi flew away before detransforming in a forest as he was about to pass out, but he saw a black purple-haired girl in a purple kimono with fans catch him as she embraced him, as she too was crying when he fell unconscious. But guys, that's all for today.